All right, so every now and then I like to get in a little scrap, get in a little drama on the Twitter or, have a debate. Actually, when I first started writing about video games, I had been previously writing about politics, and when I first started blogging, I started a website with a number of other writers, including Freddie DeBoer, called The League of Ordinary Gentlemen, and kind of our ethos was, to have debates, to come from many different perspectives and have civil debates about politics and culture. And to try to foster that in the comment section as well. One reason I reply to so many people on social media and the comments and everything else is that there's from those days where engaging with readers directly a lot was kind of part of the point. You'd have a conversation and, we would write about, stuff that Andrew Sullivan or, writers at various other places like The Atlantic and so on and so forth. We would write arguments all the time. It was this idea was sort of having a free exchange of ideas where you would, and this was back in the aughts, right? This was before, this is like, 2008, right? 2009, when, before the internet went totally batshit and before the culture became what it is today, and you can't really argue about stuff because you have to be part of a team or else you are considered a fence sitter, and we'll get to that in a second. But basically, when I got into video games, I thought, hey, I can have the same spirit of engagement with other writers, other video game journalists. And I was quickly disabused of that notion during the Mass Effect Mass Effect 3 ending thing, as well as other events that took place, including I wrote about this game that had never been released and was available on an emulator, but now this other company was going to re-release it on like its original cartridge. And I linked to that emulator because the game had never been released. I just was linking like, here's the only place you've been able to play this game for like 30 years. And tons of other game journalists and whatnot descended upon me like vultures, trying to have me fired and all this stuff for promoting theft. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. Really, really set the tone for what was to come next. And my, I suppose that has affected me and my bias towards my, colleagues in game journalism. And also, this time when I was getting into game journalism around 2011, 2013, this was pre-Gamergate, pre-Trump, but really at the dawn of, I guess, the way that media has gone in the last decade. To become very, very strident, very, very, circle the wagons. If you don't agree with us, you're the enemy, cancel culture, the whole nine yards, right? And what I've seen is, is this divide grow deeper and deeper, and having an actual conversation or a debate has really become almost impossible in this medium. So, but I still have tried over the years, and we'll get to a couple instances of that in a second. But I wanted to start with this article in Kotaku. Everybody loves Kotaku. This was never about anything other than hate by Alyssa Mercante. So this is about the Assassin's Creed Shadows deal. Assassin's Creed Shadows has been a controversy for a while now because it features Yosuke, who is in this game, a black samurai. Now, there's lots of debate over whether he was a samurai or not, and I could give a shit about any of that because this is a fictional game. But there's been a lot of debate over whether it was cool for Ubisoft to include as one of its primary protagonists in this game, one of two, as a black man rather than a Japanese man, since it's the first Assassin's Creed game set in Japan. Now, personally, again, I don't care. I really don't, because I really don't care about Assassin's Creed. And what I did care about is initially when this conversation was taking place, or when this was first, a controversy on the internet, I was noticing a lot of people in the games journalism side of things tweeting stuff like, the only possible reason anyone could be upset with this is if they are racists. And I think that's not true. I think that, probably some of it's true to an extent, right? There are racists, we know this. But I think a lot of people are also just upset that, that this is a game, the first game set in Japan, and it is not featuring just Japanese protagonists, right? Because other Assassin's Creed games have been fairly faithful to the, not the history per se, but like the racial component, at least. People bring up Assassin's Creed Black Flag and they're like, well, this is a white guy in the Caribbean. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's a pirate story. There were lots of white pirates there, not just one. The point is, I guess, is that it's not just about hate. And this is what Mercante is claiming here, that the only possible reason that you could be upset by this is that you hate black people. Though a lot of Japanese people are also upset by this, which I assume means that they must just hate black people. It's just like the bottom of the barrel. The low-hanging fruit. And this whole article, which I don't even think I need to read, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But, it's a retread of what we've heard, even way back in 2014 when people were writing the Gamers Are Dead articles. Like, okay, it's a special brand of hatred, a sort of backwards logic boomerang careening through the air on its way back from progress. Since its obsession, gaming as a cultural space was largely dominated by white boys and men. You had to have a certain amount of wealth and free time to even partake in it, and those were not readily available to marginalized groups in the 80s and 90s. I mean, man, my family was poor when I was a kid. My dad was a teacher, and my mom stayed at home, and we had no money. Like, a teacher in the 80s made no money. Like, I was so shocked when we got a Nintendo. She's right to an extent. Like, we didn't have enough money for a Nintendo, and my parents told me I would never have one until I turned 10. I think I was 10, and I opened my present, and it was a Nintendo, and I literally, like, broke down in tears. Because it was such a shock, yeah, to some degree she's right that you need a certain amount of wealth to play video games, but she's making it sound like if you're like a white person, you must have wealth, which is crazy to me because there's a lot of poor white people out there. Maybe they're a marginalized group. I don't know. Marketing and the design of games aimed at boys increasingly fueled the widespread perception that this hobby was exclusively for them, to the point where many girls with an interest in it were met with parental resistance and cultural shunning. Yeah, this is something I've talked about before. There's a little bit of truth to that, and there's a lot of truth to the idea that just a lot of girls didn't want to play video games or D&D and all that stuff. Like, where that starts, where it ends, is it the parents, is it the marketing, is it the culture, is it just the difference between girls and boys? That's harder to say, because even today, many, many years later, when it's a lot cooler to play video games and D&D and that stuff is like left its, back then when we're talking about here, the impression was that people are bad and lame and nerds and dweebs and all these like she's talking about cultural shunning for like girls to want to play these things, but really there was a lot of cultural shunning for people who did. Like, it wasn't cool. You were an outcast. Like, oh my god, you like video games and D&D and tech and like techie stuff and like fantasy books. Like, you're a dork. You're never gonna get laid. Like, there's this impression when I read a lot of these kinds of pieces that, like, girls were kept out of the cool kids club back then, but, like, that's not true. This was not the cool kids club. It's only become the cool kids club recently, and recently is when all these people suddenly want to be part of it. And that's just, I'm sorry, that's just the truth. And okay, eventually, a substantial number of women, queer folks, and minorities got jobs in the video game industry as developers, social media managers, community organizers, journalists, and more. The rise of indie games opened up the floor for more unique approaches to game development, more diverse schools of thought, more genre-bending titles that defied definition. Largely thanks to the Me Too and Black Lives Matter movements, bad actors were held accountable for perpetuating antiquated ideologies or antisocial behaviors against marginalized folks in gaming. Wow, that's a mouthful. It was a fight to get to even a somewhat level playing field, but it felt like we had nearly gotten there. Did it really? Did you ever write anything that said we're nearly there? Because here's the thing, and I'll get to my tweet about this in a second. Nobody who writes this kind of piece wants to get there. I mean, this is the reality of this niche of writers and activists and whatnot, is that they don't want to get there because then they can't write these articles anymore, right? But that's when the reactionaries come in. A rumor first spun in the darker corners of the internet gains traction and jumps to the mainstream, and all attempts to debunk it are met with accusations of conspiracy. It gains more traction. Elon Musk posts about it. The men who were first ringing the reactionary bell see dollar signs thanks to the monetization of virality. Yada, yada, yada. Here we come with the grifter word, right? I mean, that's what you can't have a different opinion than me or you're a grifter, right? You can't have this opinion or you're a reactionary, a bigot, or you're just looking to get money from clicks. I mean, everybody's looking to get money from clicks. Let's stop pretending we're not. Everybody wants to get clicks in journalism so that they can eat, so they can feed their families, so they can have a roof over their heads. Like, we are all in this for traffic, right? We hopefully are doing a good job, right? But like, just like a person who makes a video game or who a studio that makes a movie, like, they want people to watch it. I don't understand the dirty word with clicks either, because it's like, you want people to buy your game, you want people to watch your movie, you want people to go to your concert. But it's bad if people are supposed to want to read your article or watch your YouTube video. Anyways. And she lists a bunch of stuff, like all the different controversies, and then concludes that it's just hate. I mean, she begins and ends with this argument that it is just... Okay, here's the final paragraph. There will never be a shortage of hate for them to spread. The only way forward is a full-throated denouncing of bad actors in the video game space from the biggest names in the business, the largest companies in this industry. Yes, what we really need is the corporations saving us, not a bizarre ham-handed statement that will lend credence to the baseless bullshit that implies their arguments are rooted in logic when hate itself is illogical. Hate itself is illogical. Put it on a fucking t-shirt. Ubisoft's statement, which is right here, is word salad practically. I mean, it's like an apology for using some icons and stuff they weren't allowed to use, but it doesn't really say anything other than like, hey, this is a fictional story. We used historians and consultants for it. Please don't be mean to them. Like, I don't know. It's barely anything. It doesn't say a lot. It's like, while Yosuke is depicted as a samurai in Assassin's Creed Shadows, we acknowledge that this is a matter of debate and discussion. Okay, yeah, right, whatever. I don't know that like the reaction on Twitter warrants an entire article to talk about hate. Like, of course you're going to find assholes on Twitter saying shitty things. Like, okay, so I tweeted this. I tweeted, there are certainly hateful and bigoted people angry about Assassin's Creed Shadows, but Alyssa Mercante engages in such bad faith. Truth is, she relishes this shit, and it's far easier to say it's all just hate than to bother with cumbersome nuance. And I linked to the piece. I don't tag her because people have told me that tagging someone is harassment. I'm also told that not tagging someone is like talking behind their back. I don't know the etiquette anymore on Twitter. I'm not sure there exists etiquette, because like whatever you do, someone is going to say that you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So I didn't tag her here because I don't want to be accused of like sending my minions or whatever to harass her. And I don't want people to harass her because I don't think that's a cool thing to do. I've seen a lot of replies that in this thread, because she responds to me, I've seen a lot of replies to her or about her that I think are shitty, and I don't condone them, and I would never use them myself. Because, frankly, like, honestly, I don't know much about Alyssa Mercante. I know she's very, very strident and has very, very big opinions about things, and it has made her... it has made her the target of a lot of trolls and other people who are mad at her, but I think this has boosted her reputation and whatnot. So this is what I mean. Like, I think she relishes this shit. And let's be honest, like, I like a good debate, man. I like to argue with people. Like, I like to say that I think she's engaging in bad faith. And I'm cool if she wants to come back and be like, no, I'm not. Like, here's what I'm doing, and you're wrong. That's cool, too. I relish the fact that we don't all agree on everything. I think that's a good thing. Alyssa Mercante did respond to me. Eric, let's not go there with bad faith. Stick to wearing athletic shorts with sandals at work events, writing at an 8th grade level, and using me for clicks. So that's a curious response. I do like wearing athletic shorts. I am literally wearing them right now because they are comfortable and because I go to the gym and stuff, and I hike, and I try to be active. And I also just really like to be comfortable, mostly. I don't wear sandals, though, because I don't like sandals that much. I'll wear them at the beach. I don't think I've ever worn athletic shorts to a work event that I remember. But then again, like, I could show up to a work event dressed like the dude from The Big Lebowski, and that would probably be pretty on brand for me because I'm not like I don't dress fancy very often. I don't wear a tie very often. It's not my thing. So I don't actually think that, like, if I showed up to a work event in sandals and athletic shorts, that would be a bad thing. It's just a weird response, right? It's an attack on my appearance, and then, of course, on my writing ability. And then I'm using her for clicks, which is interesting, because I do have more followers than her. So I don't think I'm using her for clicks. But as I said earlier, we are all in this for clicks, right? She's in it for clicks. I'm in it for clicks. We all want to make ours. We got to get our end. So, yeah, I guess I am. But I'm also making an argument about her approach to this subject, and all she's doing is saying that my appearance is bad, that I write poorly, and that I'm using her for clicks. There's no response to what I actually said. So I said, I don't wear sandals, Alyssa, but thank you truly for illustrating my point. And she says, you've been riding my ass since 2021, bruv. Bruv? Is that like a thing? Well, we try to talk like this, bruv. I've written, and I've responded, as far as I can recall, I've written precisely one thing before this tweet that even mentions your name. And if a post about Elden Ring difficulty from 3 years ago qualifies as writing your ass, you need to get a grip. I was wrong. I did write this. I wrote a piece called Why Elden Ring Needs to Be as Challenging as Dark Souls. And it links to her article, I think it was a Game Rant at the time, where she wants it to be more accessible and not as hard because she writes, I have played one From Software game, the Dark Souls remaster, and for me it was akin to psychological torture. I'm a run and gun kind of player with about as much patience as a toddler, so the limited traversal options mean I constantly run into an enemy type that repeatedly and unrelentingly kicks my ass. Yada, yada, yada. So now, my kind of position here in this article from 3 years ago was that who cares if that's the kind of player you are? These games aren't built for you if that's the big problem you have. Like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, all of these games, if you're just not the kind of player that enjoys them, then okay, don't play them. Like, I don't write articles about how like MOBA games or like League of Legends should change their entire like fabric of their entire nature so that I can enjoy them. I don't enjoy them, so I don't play them. Crazy. Now the weird thing is that Mercante, I just looked up some of her stuff on Elden Ring, and look, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree review, massive, menacing, and magnificent. And you know what? I agree with just about everything she says about this. This goes back to my thesis that most of us agree on most things, and we get into these bullshit like feuds and whatnot based on like the tiniest differences. She writes, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree is nothing short of magnificent. It is both an expansion to and a distillation of what makes the original game so special, offering you a chance to try out new weapons and builds while learning far more about the lands between than you might have expected. It will delight you in one breath and devastate you the next, forcing you to question your approach to fortify your spirit. Yeah, I mean, I agree, man. It's an awesome DLC. Alyssa Mercante is absolutely right, and this is a pretty damn good review, if you ask me. Like, she can write. I just disagree with a lot of the things she says, but not here. Not where it counts, I suppose. Elden Ring, badass game. I think she should probably go back and play Dark Souls and all those other games that she's missing out on, because honestly, if you can play Elden Ring, you can play those. They're not that hard. Sekiro's hard. Sekiro's very, very hard. Anyways, the other one that I wrote about her, not about her, that I responded to her. See, like I said earlier, I really enjoy spirited debates. I enjoy arguing with people I disagree with. I don't want everyone to agree with me. I don't even want my readers and subscribers on YouTube to agree with everything I say. That would be boring and pathetic. But this one is Overwatch 2 Constable Tracer skin spawned silly outrage over police in video games. And this was from 2022 when it was all in vogue. All the rage to hate on the cops. Now, I am not like pro-policeman. I spent a night in jail, man. Like, I don't love cops. Like, I've had my like, cops are a necessary evil, right? Like, if we lived in a world where we didn't need the police, wouldn't that be lovely? I rented a place in a gated community for a while, which was so strange. But one of the craziest things about a gated community is, like, once you're in there, like, there are no cops. if you live among the wealthy, like, you don't need, like, there's no cops. But I also remember one time I was spending the night at a friend's house down in a much poorer part of town, and the cops just went down the street looking in everybody's windows, and then they made like 19 busts in that neighborhood, like just drug busts and stuff, just looking through windows. I mean, that's not even legal, but I was there when they showed up. No one called the cops on us. Like, we were all just asleep, and they show up in the morning, like, what the fuck? Like, yeah, there's problems with cops. I definitely have problems with police, but it's crazy to me that that it's a scandal that a tracer skin that's like a constable skin, that's even controversial. As I point out in the piece, okay. So she writes in her article, Kotaku reached out to Blizzard for a comment regarding the ideology behind this latest cop skin. And I write, the ideology behind putting a cop skin in a video game about futuristic cops? I mean, Overwatch is a game about police. That's the whole premise of the game. Like, she wrote at the time, the in-game cop skins feel like Blizzard is saying the quiet part very, very loud. Overwatch characters are essentially cops who are forced to become vigilantes after their organization is disbanded following investigations into some of their ethically questionable and legally shaky tactics. And on and on and on. What did she say? I'm sorry, I'm going to... Okay. Here's what it was. I forgot. Overwatch was banned from intervening in the uprising, but did anyway. Interestingly enough, the Tracer cop skin comes not long before Overwatch 2 adds its newest character, Ramatra, to the game, who's the leader of that very same terrorist organization Tracer was sent to stop. I wonder how he'd feel about seeing Tracer in a cop skin. Like, come on, man. Come on. Really? You're worried that Tracer in a cop skin is going to offend the fictional terrorists in Overwatch? Okay. Blizzard could choose to keep the cop bit quiet, but seems determined to shout it from the rooftops of King's Row. The place where the cops were sent to violently quell an uprising. Oh my god. I mean, it's just like, it reads like self-parody. I mean, it really does. It's so silly. And this is why I'm so happy. I'm just so happy that people like Alyssa Mercante exist. Because it would be such a boring world. It would be such a boring world if we all just agreed about everything. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from here. I think that the whole controversy over Assassin's Creed Shadows is overblown. I think it, and here's what happens. Okay, it's the same thing with Gamergate, with the Gamers Are Dead articles. The gaming press pretend that they're condemning hatred, right? What did she say? They need to. What was the line here at the end of that first piece? The only way forward is a full-throated denouncing of bad actors. That is the pretense, right? We are condemning hatred. We are out here to stop hatred. We are the last line of defense against the teeming masses of incels, basement dwellers. But in reality, when you say stuff like in the beginning of this controversy, when you get on Twitter and you start saying things like the only reason you could possibly be upset about this is if you're a racist and you hate black people. If you get out there and you start saying that and you start lumping everybody together, you stir up more controversy and you extend the length of this shit. And that's what they really want, man, is they want to extend the length of this because it's good for content. And a lot of people want to do that on the other side too. A lot of people everywhere want to extend the length of this shit. And what I'm suggesting is that perhaps if we entered the conversation saying something like a little more nuanced, a little less strident, then maybe this wouldn't get so big every time. Maybe if we didn't say everyone, the only reason, the only possible thing is hatred, and instead said, well, it is kind of, maybe some of these people have reasonable arguments. Maybe some of these people actually have a point. Maybe it's not all hatred. Maybe some of it is, maybe, and we got to do some work to not just lump everybody together, to listen a little bit. Maybe that would, result in fewer flame wars. But of course, I'm going to find this again. I forgot to read the rest of our little tiff on Twitter. So she said, I've been writing her ass since 2021, and I pointed out I've only written one, but it's actually two times for this tweet. Have I ever even mentioned her name? And then she says, she called me a fence sitter twice, but I only see one here because Twitter's weird, but she calls me a fence sitter. And I just find, I told her that's what the right wingers say as well. Like, I just find it it's so discouraging that if you have your own opinions and you don't just follow along with this team or that team, that you're described as a fence sitter or a moderate or a centrist. Like, I'm not in the center of two of these extremes. Like, I'm not in the center of some crazy MAGA guy and Alyssa Mercante. Like, I just disagree with them both. That doesn't put me in between them. I'm not sitting on some fence where I'm like, gosh, should I join Alyssa's team or should I join Trump's team? No, I'm not fence sitting. I've got my own fucking opinions because I fucking think for myself. And yeah, I'm not the best writer out there. I make plenty of mistakes. I am, I'm not the best critic. I'm not the best gamer. I'm not the best at any of this shit. But I do try. I try to see things from multiple points of view. And I try also not to just demonize everyone. Like, I do think this Tracer article I was responding to that Alyssa Mercante wrote was extremely stupid. Like, it's a terrible article and it had some goofy arguments in it. But I think her Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree review is really good. And I think she makes a lot of great points there. So I think probably Alyssa Mercante is just like the rest of us, somebody who has some good things to say and some dumb things to say. I think it's funny that she would insult my appearance because, I didn't insult her appearance. It's like the easiest thing to do, just to insult the way someone dresses or does their hair or their beard. I don't know. I'm just kind of ranting now because I found the whole thing sort of funny. And disappointing. But then again, like, maybe I just relish this shit too, right? So, I don't know. I thought this whole Assassin's Creed Shadows thing was behind us. I only noticed it because of this article. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even thought twice. So you tell me if this kind of full-throated denunciation of bigotry is working or not. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Peace.